Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session hosted by Maryland Online. Welcome to Creating a Metaversity, a Journey of Discovery. My name is Brianna McGinnis. I'm the Chair of Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics at Carroll Community College and a lover of all things Maryland Online. I am introducing David P. Johnson, Ph.D., who is the Portfolio Director of the Web and Digital Design undergraduate program at the University of Maryland Global Campus, UMGC. He received an MS in Computer Systems Management from UMGC and earned a PhD in Occupational Studies, Workforce Education from the University of Georgia. Passionate about all things digital, his interests include virtual reality, web development, graphic design, 3D printing, and gaming. If everyone wouldn't mind, please make sure you're muted. And then if you could also go to the chat and enter your full name and institution. Thank you very much, and I'll hand it over to David.
Let me unmute myself. Good afternoon. I am happy to be here. I'm so thankful and honored that Maryland Online invited me to give this presentation. What I'm going to be talking about today is some of the exciting things that we're doing at UMGC in our experimentation with extended reality, virtual reality, and integrating that into our courses. So I'm going to chronicle the last 2.5 years of what we've been trying to do to convince the university to adopt extended reality and virtual reality as a standard instructional tool. So let's talk a little bit about agenda. So I'm going to level set us with some definitions, talk about the results of the pilot. I'm going to jump right to the good stuff so you get an idea of what results we're seeing, and then go back a little bit about how we started, results so far, some of our partners, platforms that we use, where we are now, and then a little bit about the future, because AI is really big now, and AI is interacting with the field of VR in a lot of exciting ways. First, I want to play for you a short demo that'll describe a little bit of what we're doing at UMGC. So it's about 2 minutes long. Hello, my name is David Johnson, and welcome to the UMGC Virtual Campus. UMGC is focused on access and inclusion in higher education and is excited to be teaching in virtual reality by bringing certain courses into the metaverse. The UMGC Virtual Campus consists of 5 different buildings situated around a pond and a fountain. The campus also includes 6 customized UMGC learning spaces, including a classroom, lecture hall, auditorium, student lounge, and museum. We also created a presidential office suite to accommodate the president, his guests, and our colleagues from Europe and Asia. Our virtual reality platform allows us access to over 150 different immersive learning environments. We have access to over 7,000 objects, including 360 videos, 3D videos, 2D videos, 3D models, both static and animated, as well as sounds. By creating this immersive experience, we hope to improve the students' learning and increase social connections that happen in the classroom. All right, so that was just a short video of a little bit of what we're doing. I'll talk a little bit more in detail about that. I'm going to jump back a little bit and level set. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat. And we have someone monitoring the chat, Brianna, and she's going to raise any questions that you guys may have. Some of them we might keep to the end. Just depends. I'll let her make that decision. So let's talk about virtual reality. So we're all on the same page here. That's when you have the headset. You put the headset on, and it's a computer-generated virtual environment. If you have not worn a VR headset or tried it out, when you do that, it replaces everything that you can see. So in front of you, back of you, left, right, even on the ground, and it creates a strange sensation that makes you feel like you're in another world. I remember the first time I did that. My boss and I were testing out this virtual classroom, and he was sitting next to me, and he started to talk to me, and I heard him in my left ear, and I looked over, and he was sitting right beside me, so close that I felt a little strange, like he needed to give me 6 feet, and so I moved away from him, and that's when I realized, even in this environment, I felt a sense of presence, and so when we teach students in virtual reality, we try to try to take use of that type of that feeling that you get. It's strange, but it tricks the brain into thinking you're actually there, and even though you're at remote locations. Augmented reality, you guys have heard of that. That's just the superimposition of 3D and 2D information on top of the real world. Some great examples of that is if you ever did some shopping at IKEA and you looked at some furniture, you can put the furniture in your house. That's augmented reality. Also, there are tons of image filters that people use: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. So if you use those, that's augmented reality. But the most famous of all is Pokemon Go, that craze a couple years ago. So if you participated in that or know about that, that is one of the probably most popular use cases of augmented reality. Now, what is mixed reality? I like to say that mixed reality is augmented reality on steroids. So there's not a superimposition of 3D and 2D objects onto the real world. Actually, the real world interacts with the virtual world. And so let's say if you had a virtual ball and you threw it against your wall, it would actually bounce off the wall and come back to you. So this is sort of an enhanced version of of augmented reality. I like to call it augmented reality, but so that's what mixed reality is, and so it's becoming a little bit more popular now, especially with the Oculus Quest 3 and some other more powerful headsets. So what is extended reality? Extended reality is the umbrella term used for all. So VR, XR, AR, MR, and any future realities that may come up. So sometimes I use XR just as a umbrella term. If someone asks you what the metaverse is, I like to think of it as there are two different versions. There's the Mark Zuckerberg definition of the metaverse. There's only one. And one day, all the companies in the world are going to get together and create this one metaverse. We're all going to live there together in peace and harmony and work there and all of these different things. And we're going to earn money and those kind of things. It's more of a theoretical framework or a concept that has not come to fruition. So when most people talk about the metaverse now, it's any immersive application that has avatars. And so which one is the right one? I think probably either one. Some of these you may recognize, Neo's VR chat. You probably heard of VR chat. Engage, Horizon Worlds, probably. Spatial, yes. Mozilla Hubs. I always like to say rest in peace to Allspace, because Allspace retired about 2 years ago. And then old school Second Life was probably one of the first virtual worlds. All right, we talked a little bit about the sense of presence. So, according to Mark Zuckerberg, he believes that this is the defining quality of the metaverse, the presence, and you're going to feel like you're in there with other people. You'll see their facial expressions, body language, and the subtle ways that we communicate. I always tell my faculty, when you're teaching students and they have the headsets on, you can tell if they're paying attention. You can tell if they're looking at you, if they're not looking at you, if they're nodding their head, if they're not paying attention, you can tell. So you can actually get a sense of presence and sort of the atmosphere of how we communicate with each other. So what is a metaversity? Pretty much just a educational virtual space it's in the metaverse. And so some people believe that this is the next evolution of education. I guess we'll see how that goes. It's still early days.
Of course, right now, VR has a growing number of use cases. So healthcare, education, military, entertainment, sports, you would be surprised. And some of the metrics and projections indicate that in the next 10 years, employment is going to grow exponentially, and the need for students and people to create these type of jobs will become more in demand. So there's a number of folks, like I said, that believe that XR is ready to revolutionize higher education because it's virtual, remote. It provides multi-sensory experiences that are impossible in the real world to recreate. In some cases, you can create these experiences where people can get access to equipment that they cannot get access to train on in any other way. So hazardous materials or very expensive materials, and actually train on those and build things and take things apart. And so when they actually go to the real job, they have this experience that you can't like quantify, but that experience helps them. So when they go into the real life situation, they feel like it's not the first time that they've done that. So a sense of touch is coming soon. Smell and taste forecasted to be available in 2030. And we believe that XR is poised for wider adoption, with new technologies such as 5G coming more to commonplace. So let's talk about our results. So what we've seen so far. So students that have taken VR courses feel more comfortable contributing in class. And you might not be able to see all of the details on this slide. The teal color is the students that are the VR students. The yellow is students that have taken courses overseas. And then online is red and hybrid is gray. Next slide, students feel more connected to their instructor. And so you can see that that's the case with the VR students. They feel more connected. They also feel more connected to their fellow students. In addition to that, when asked would they like to take another course, over 87% said yes, they'd like to take another course. That's pretty good. So we also looked at retention and success, and retention rates are higher and success rates are actually higher. And so you see some comments here that some of the students have said the professor was great and experience with the VR headset was great. I wish they offered more classes. So once we started running the pilots, we just got more students that wanted to have those. But the interesting thing is these students enrolled in other courses knowing that VR wasn't available in those courses at a higher rate than students that hadn't taken any VR courses. So I think that says a lot. So one thing that we did do is, this is a little fuzzy. This is a video. It's going to be a little bit better when I start playing it. I'll play it, then I'll talk a little bit about it. But at the very start, we started bringing in an analytics unit to measure what student feedback, so that we could actually use that and then learn from it and improve the courses, and hopefully use that to convince the university to move forward. So here's a video about a meeting that we had with one of our folks from the analytics department, explaining what they were doing. So it gives you a little bit more information than what I just talked about.
Today we have some guest speakers. We're going to start off with Allison Patch. When Dan put together this group, we started doing the pilot. One of the key things that he did was make sure we sent out surveys pre-course and post, so that we can start gathering data about the success and what students felt about being in the pilot courses, so that we can use this later on to pitch it back to the university to try to get full-time support.
My name's Allison Patch. I work in academic services and quality on Dar McNally's team. And my role really is to do research and evaluation for the university to make sure that things like these pilots are on the up and up, that it's serving students, serving faculty members, and is something that is going to bring success to UMGC. The first slide here is really just definitions of what we're talking about. So analytics came up with these definitions of retention and persistence. So retention is enrollment 1 year out from the original pilot enrollment or graduated by that 1 year. And then persistence is the next term re-enrollment. So just so everybody knows, those are the definitions that we're looking at. And then we have some descriptive statistics. This is a time frame that we're looking at, fall 22 to fall 2023. So for retention, we really only have fall and spring. So it's that really small group, only 57 students in the VR courses. We are seeing a pretty big difference. Unfortunately, it's not statistically significant yet, but it's almost 8% difference between the two groups, and even bigger when you look at just the students that succeeded in the course that they were taking. So I believe that as time goes on and that group gets bigger, we'll see a bigger difference in retention. So that's great news. And then also looking at the persistence data. So again, that's next term enrollment. We see a difference of 10%, or 10 percentage points. So beyond the descriptive statistics for persistence, I also did multivariate logic regression. Since we had 108 students in VR, it felt like we were at that threshold where we could do this. So the dependent variable we're looking at was persistence, or that next term re-enrollment. Independent variable of interest was VR or not VR. And the controls we used were success, age, whether or not the students was direct to consumer or not, gender, and their cumulative GPA and total credits that they had taken. So all of those things all the control variables are factors that we have found in the past to be correlated with a student's likelihood of staying at UMGC and succeeding. So that's why they were included as controls. But what we found was that there was a statistically significant difference. So being in a VR class did help students to re-enroll at the university. There was almost a 9 percentage point difference in the predicted probabilities, which is coming from a position where I'm looking at this kind of data all the time. That's humongous. That is a huge effect. And so basically, this is working. The pilot's doing great, and hopefully it'll, I was asked to give these numbers so that there's potential to expand the pilot further. And I think that there's great evidence to keep expanding the pilot and to really keep it going here at UMGC.
Today we have some guests.
All right, so here's another video, but you can see some of the really great results that we're having so far. And once again, it's a great idea of my boss to make sure that we did our data analysis on every course so that we can then look back and crunch these numbers and get results that we can then use. Here's a video here about that'll give you some student thoughts. So this is a video from the actual students.
We received very positive feedback from faculty and students, but let's hear what they have to say.
The one thing I like is the fact that, to me, it gives a sense of personalization, to actually have a professor that you can hear their voice and explain things rather than going back and forth from writing on the discussion board or sending emails. So that's one of the main things I like, is the fact that, we can meet and there's some personalization when we meet with a VR set.
My name's Alex McCoy, and I absolutely agree with those comments. I think the relationship building and the ease of communication, being able to hear a voice on the other side instead of communicating through emails, has definitely made this course clearer and easier to work through.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly with what Latanya and Alex have said. In addition, I like the environment, not only for hearing, also foreseeing and experiencing, what we're experiencing like right now, which is interesting. But also
Yes,
the
yes.
classroom is interesting. We're able to watch videos. We're able to, see things written on the board and write things written on the board. We're able to interact with one another as entities,
Yes,
rather than just as a piece of paper, discussion paper. So, writing has its place, but this is great.
Yeah, so I like what the rest of my classmates were saying. I do like the idea of being able to come and see the professor on a weekly basis. It's like you really are attending class even though you're just at home. Like for me, I'm in my basement. I'm just had to go downstairs to go to class. But I like that aspect of just being in a classroom. Of course, this is a unique classroom with different environments that you never know which week what's going to show up, what you're going to experience. So that's pretty cool. So the technology aspect is another aspect that I like. Just experiencing this virtual reality world is pretty cool. And seeing my classmates and interacting with them, actually talking to them, even though we're not in the same room, is something that I've, with my previous classes, never got to experience. So, it's a very cool and neat way to have class.
David, sorry, I think I muted you by accident. I was trying to unmute myself. There are a few questions in the chat. Do you mind if I read them to you at this point?
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
All right, great. So when students enroll in these classes, do they have to have a VR headset in order to enroll? Or is this part of the fees in the class? Does the student rent or check out a headset in order to participate? And do they create their avatars, their own avatars?
Oh yeah, great questions. So as a part of our contract, we were, I won't say given because we had to pay money in the contract. We received 50 Oculus Quest 2 headsets. And then we've purchased a number of other headsets. So we have, I don't know, maybe 125, 30 some headsets. We mail those headsets out to students. So students use those and then they mail them back. We send them return postage. And then our partners factory reset the headsets. And then they also sanitize them and then we send them out. So we keep them sort of circulating in inventory. Students don't have to pay for anything. And yes, they get to create their own avatars.
Wonderful, thank you. One other question, which metaverse or world is this one, the one from the video you just showed?
Okay, that is Engage.
Engage.
Yes, and we're using 3 different platforms right now: Engage, Victory, VXR Labs, and Spatial. So we're experimenting with all 3.
Wonderful, thank you. And yes, folks, you can continue to throw questions in the chat or you can hold them till the end and then I'll interject as appropriate. Thanks, David.
Great, sure, no problem. So continuing on here, I'm going to back up a little bit, just talk about UMGC if you don't know, to give you some more information. We're one of the largest universities in the U.S. We have stateside, Asian, and European divisions. We're open university, which means we don't have any entrance requirement. So as long as you have a high school diploma or a GED, we'll take you and we'll take you from where you are to get you to where you need to be. We serve working adults, military, their families, veterans. We're in Maryland, U.S., worldwide. We've been in operation over 75 years, founded in 1947, member of the University System of Maryland, and we have on-site instruction at more than 20 plus locations in the DMV and 20 countries and territories worldwide. And in 2022, we had about 305,000 enrollments. So that's to give you a little bit of background. So one of the challenges is to how do we scale? How do we scale to this many students and get headsets to them? So that was a good question that was asked. So I manage this undergraduate program and it's in web and digital design. There are 3 focus areas: web design, extended reality, and digital design. And so while we were working on creating courses for the virtual reality focus area, we started to think that instead of just providing virtual reality experiences for our students, that we could spread it to the entire university and have the entire university benefit, not just the students in my program. So we were able to create these interactive learning objects as a part of our courses, but then we started to think of ways that, like I said, we could expand this and expand it into the university. So in 2022, there's a perfect storm. There's a change in management. And like I said, I thought that I was more focused on our courses, but leadership decided that we should look at this more in a broad fashion. And luckily enough, we were able to get support from the dean and monies from the dean that allowed us to make this project a reality. One of our inspirations was Morehouse College, because they were one of the first universities that created a digital twin. So they actually created a copy. When I say digital twin, a copy of their university in virtual reality, down to the statues and the architecture and designs. And we were inspired by that to try to figure out how to do it ourselves. The only challenge was that none of us had jobs to create a metaverse. So how do we figure out how to do that? So what I did in my spare time for about 8 weeks outside of the office, I created a virtual campus proof of concept in a VR platform called Sansar. One of my goals was to try to get buy-in from everybody. So if you see this middle, there's an art gallery. So I created this art gallery and called it the Dan Mintz Art Gallery. That's my boss. So I tried to get some buy-in from him. And in some of the buildings, I had pictures of the president and the deans, and I was trying to figure out how I could do this. And once again, this isn't my job, so I couldn't do this at the job. So I waited one day that we had a meeting and we were talking about VR, and I showed them this concept, and they were like, you know what, we could do this. Let's see if we could do it. And so that's sort of how it started. And then my supervisor, Dan Mintz, brought together a team, and this is part of the team here, of staff and faculty who work at UMGC who elected to take on what we call almost a second job, to actually work to create this rogue organization that makes the pilot work. So we have Michelle Hansen that works with logistics, so headset acquisition and shipping and receiving. I do the faculty training, and then there are other folks on the team that work in communications, and so it's a sort of a small company, and we've all volunteered to do this, and we've got support. So yeah, so the university knows what we're doing, but I like to call us a rogue organization. And each university actually, how they integrate VR into the into their curriculum or experiment with it. They do different, like they figure out different ways to do it. Sometimes there's one champion, and that champion could be anywhere. And luckily we got support in order to do this. But yeah, we have this organization that sort of runs underground. So our partnership, there was a question about the platforms that we use. So we have a contract with Victory XR, and they're an educational XR provider. They had a partnership with Meta, and we became one of the Meta 10 universities. And part of that Meta 10 was that we get these 50 MetaQuest 2 headsets. But they also, as a part of the contract, they were going to build a virtual twin campus for us and a number of other spaces. So I had them create a lecture hall, classroom, student lounge, office for the president that you saw in the first video, and then a virtual history museum. So I tried to think of spaces that we might use before we started to use them. And then
David, I'm
yes.
sorry to interrupt. There's a question in the chat. Do students download this
That's a good question. You cut off a little bit. They said, do they download it?
Yes. Do they download this program, or is it web-based?
Oh, good question. Okay. So Victory, well, let's go to Engage. Engage is a application that you have to download. So you do download it. It is free for the students. We pay for licenses and things like that and access. So they have to download it, and then of course they create their avatar. So the beauty of it is that you can download it to a computer, VR headset, phone, or tablet. So let's say one day you come in and your headset is your battery dies, you can come in through the computer. Or if you're remote somewhere, you can get on through the phone. So we selected a platform that had multiple ways that you could get access to it. So they have to download it. Our students are used to downloading applications because they're all remote. So everything, Word, PowerPoint, all of those applications for classes, they do download those.
Great, thank you. And you might be getting here, but there's another question about budgets. What sort of budget might this require for implementation? So you can feel free to answer that now or later.
Sure. I'm not the budget person, so that's not my area. But these things do, you are paying per student. In some cases, maybe $100 and some per student, but there are some discounts and perks as well as to that dollar amount. So I'll be happy to talk a little bit more detail offline about that. But I'm not the financial person that's working on that part. But there is money involved. Hopefully that answered the question. They can restructure it if they want to. Maybe I'll try to answer it a different way. But once again, Victory has a number of assets that we can access. So there are all these spaces. So I mentioned 140 in the video. There are about 170 now. So I mean, you can go to the moon, you can go to the Mars. You can put students in the Titanic and they can see the iceberg coming up. They can go to the White House. They can go to Mount Fuji. They can go to the moon. When they're on the moon, they automatically get a spacesuit. They could go to the beach, and if they go in the water, their clothes automatically turn into swimsuits. So there's some interactivity in those environments, and we try to utilize those to facilitate instruction. So a lot of different assets. We have videos and 3D assets that we talked about in the initial video. So what I did was, out of the 10 Meta-10 universities, we were the only university that did not have a campus or undergrad campus with, mascots and teams and sports teams and things like that. So if people are familiar with the Adelphi location, I took some of the buildings from the Adelphi location and created a blueprint for a fictional campus, and they built that campus, and they came up with this, and you saw some of it in the video. That statue is actually a statue that we have outside at UMGC and Adelphi. I actually had to go to Adelphi and take about 60 pictures of that statue. And then our design partner was able to use something called photogrammetry to put all those photos together and create a 3D model of the statue. And then we placed it there too. So you'd be surprised that students find a familiarity with being on the campus because the architecture and some of the buildings are exactly identical or very close to some of the buildings in our Adelphi location. So once again, so now we're in this contract with Victory, but Victory is housed on Engage. It's a little complex, but they work together in partnership. VR brings Victory XR brings clients into Engage, and then we have access to Engage spaces and Victory spaces. And then Engage has a number of spaces and features as well, so we get the best of both worlds. We're also starting to use a VR platform called Spatial. There was a question earlier about browser access. Spatial is one of the 3 that we can get access to through the browser, and there's no download. So I can give you a URL. You click on a URL, and with 30 seconds, you have your avatar, and you're ready to move around. And then you can link to another platform called Ready Player Me, customize your avatar, upload your face, change clothes and those kind of things. And so we're using Spatial as well. So each one has a unique set of features. We like different capabilities of each one. And so ideally, you'd probably want to just use one, but spatial for a long time, we had a free account. So that made it very advantageous to use.
David, real quick, there's a little bit of questions and comments in the chat about students wanting to use their phone solely for their online courses. And there's a comment that Engage and Spatial are smartphone friendly. But are you aware of any programs that require a computer? And are any of these accessible through gaming systems like the Xbox?
That's a good question. I would say I would say gaming, no, because I'm a big gaming nerd myself. I have an Xbox Series X and a PlayStation 5, so I have the both best of both worlds. And I do not believe that you could access them. You might be able to jerry rig something because I believe that you have some browser access in the PlayStation and Xbox, so you might be able to log in and do something in there, but certainly not designed to do that. So that was one question. What was the other question?
Just a comment about these platforms being mobile friendly, phone friendly.
Oh, sure. So so there are a number of platforms that are very good, but they're not available on all platforms. So some of those like VR chat are not available on the Mac. So we can't offer those type of platforms because our students won't be able to get access to them. So spatial, engage both you can get to through smartphones. You're not going to have the same feature set. You're not going to be able to like grab things and things like that that you would do if you have headsets, but you can participate, you can move around, you can talk, you can mute. So you can do some things. It's sort of meant as a backup, but yeah, if you had to use it, you could use your smartphone. Hopefully that answered the questions, and if not, ask them to fire away with some more questions. So in order to make this work, we had to interact with a lot of internal units and stakeholders. I'm not going to go through the list here, but we talked to legal, DEI, accessibility services, grant writing to try to get some grants, marketing, course development. All this is really closely in line with course development, military operations, shipping, logistics, especially procurement, technical support. We had to train our technical support folks how to use VR. So now when students call them, they would be able to answer those questions. So we had to sort of set up all of these structures to make all of this work. And then we reached out to external partners as well. There are a number of universities that gave us inspiration and helped us sort of come up with our plan. And we routinely reach out to them for guidance and consultation and just to um, communicate back and forth. So, and that includes platform providers, subject matter experts, trade and trade groups. So we're very close ties to the industry to get an idea of what they're doing, how we can improve what we're doing on our end. So some of the goals are to bring XR to students at the university, and we sort of divide the VR world into two things: social cohesion and immersive experiences. Immersive experiences are those experiences that require some interactivity, and then social cohesion is having students in all these different areas come together in a common space and actually socialize. And we found tremendous benefits in both of those, although creating immersive experiences is much more expensive. And so we're starting the 3-year pilot now. And once again, we have more than 50 headsets now. So we're excited about that. So how we started this, we actually had to recruit programs at the university to see if they were interested, to get them interested in participating in the pilot. No cost to them, but we had to sort of do things like go to the speech program chair and say, I know you guys are doing speech courses. Have you heard of VR? We may be able to use VR to enhance what you're doing. And so we did things like with Speech 100, we sort of asked some questions. So what are you guys doing in Speech 100? During the pandemic, they had students actually give speeches to their parents and to their friends. And that's great, but not as great as feeling the pressure of giving a presentation in front of someone and learning from it. So what if we took your students and put them in a VR environment where they could not only talk to other students, but they could talk in small groups, large size groups, conferences, even stadiums. And then one big thing in Speech 100 is the famous elevator speech. So what if we could actually create an elevator? You could click a button, get on it with an industry professional, hit a button, give them the speech as you went up while your fellow students and instructor watched you give this presentation. So we're trying to figure out ways to create these use cases, and we received tremendous support and was able to convince a number of programs to actually participate in the pilot. Free for them, but it took time on their part to select faculty and train faculty and figure out ways how they could best use VR to enhance their existing courses. So we just served as guides and trained them, and then it was on off to them or onto them to figure out how exactly to integrate the technology once we taught them the tools and some of the sort of best practices in pedagogy. So here's one more use case. This is the one that I like the most here. In Biology 161, Human Anatomy, in the past, students were mailed cow and heart eyes to do dissection on. And keep in mind, once again, we have 3 different divisions, stateside, Europe, and Asia. And so students in those courses, if they were in outside of the US, we sent them frozen animal parts to dissect. Oftentimes their animal parts did not get through customs. And then also they had to pay about $300 or so for the items that they had to dissect. And then of course, these items have limited limited lifespan, right? Where they expire at some point. So you have to store them somewhere like in a refrigerator, and that might not be the ideal way to store those with other members of family that might mistake them for something else. But anyway, that's a long story. So when I heard that, I started thinking that, do we have sort of a virtual lab that students could do the same type of experiments and do like something similar to that? And the goal really wasn't the cow heart or eye. I think it was just dissection in general. And so our partner actually had some cadaver labs. And so we just used those cadaver labs. And now students have 24-hour access when they were in that class to 3 different labs. This is a skeletal muscular lab where they can look at the muscles that build up the body. They can pull them apart and like put them back together and things like that. They could meet with the instructor like they did in this location, but then they also could meet with as groups together to work on these labs. Or like, let's say you needed some extra time to do something, you could actually jump in here yourself and work in these labs. So that's one. The other one is organ analysis lab. So this one you take organ parts and put it on the stand over there to the right. You'll get a readout of what the organ is, what it does, and those kind of things. And then you can practice putting it back where it actually fits in a low stake environment with no frozen body parts. And then this last one is a skeletal assembly lab where there's 2 tables. You take the bones from one table and you put them on the other table and put together your human skeleton. So, and then so this is great, especially if you have the headsets, because you can actually grab the bones and put them together and things like that. So one of our proudest accomplishments is a crime scene that we had our partner create. So I'm going to show you a little bit of video from that.
there is a concept out there that the mind cannot, or the body cannot go where the mind hasn't been. So we can create these repetitions early on by identifying what the current field practices are within the profession. We can simulate those to have your mind run through these analysis, to run through these objectives. So when you're out in the field, you feel more confident to do the job. Having the first analysis, the first investigation is terrifying, because if you make these minor mistakes, they will become major issues down the road, 3, 4, 5 years, when you're in court testifying to what you did today. You don't want to make those mistakes. The confidence level going into some of these crime scenes can shift from, this is the first time being exposed to any of this, to, I've seen it, I've had these discussions, I feel good about going in and doing the job that's necessary to provide the evidence to a case that could provide guilt or innocence down the road.
So that was the crime scene, and so we've been offering courses in the crime scene for, I want to say about a year or so, I think. And so we started to offer pilots in journalism and criminal justice, and then we started to think that there might be opportunities to do some collaboration across programs. And so this semester, for the first time, the criminal justice students and the journalism students are working together, and I'll let my supervisor explain what they're doing together.
So it was an interesting how that came about. Director who's responsible for the journalism course that is part of the initial pilot, Mitch Merovitz, asked, when he learned about the criminal justice crime scene that we're preparing, asked if next year we might be able to experiment with having his journalism students interview the criminal justice students. That would help the journalism experience of asking questions and trying to learn as much as they could about the crime where there may be imperfect information. And we give the criminal justice students experience in how to deal with in the public space when they have to deal with the press, which as they grow into the jobs that they want to either getting advancement in, they'll have to get experience with. And I doubt if even that thought process would have occurred to any of us except through the experience that you can have this kind of interactivity between students that we get in the immersive space.
And now next semester coming up, we're talking about now having a 3-program collaboration with criminal justice, journalism, and forensics. And so the amount of sort of possibilities have been growing exponentially, and we look forward to these type of partnerships, these unique partnerships in VR. Here's a list of most of the courses that we've run over the last 2.5 years. You can tell that they span the gamut from astronomy, physical geology, graduate and undergraduate courses, and some courses that you might find interesting to actually offer in VR. Some of them are social cohesion based, and then some of them actually have some interactive elements to them, like the crime scene and the cadaver lab. So in order to pull this off in terms of training, our partner Victory offers training, and they offer a professional development training program that we have faculty go through and complete. They get a certificate, they watch videos, and they actually go into VR and do things, and then they test in front of the Victory employees where they ask them to do things. They have to do them live, and then they get a certificate of completion that they have been able to master some of the technologies and techniques in VR. And then couple that, we offer them some individual training on the UMGC side with some training that's more specific just to us that will pair them to teach in our environment with our pedagogy. Here's an example of what we call a design document. We have every faculty create. It's a souped up version of a syllabus, but in the syllabus for every week, it has a list of the VR spaces that the teacher or the faculty intends to use, and then what's going to happen in those spaces. So, and then it's a way that we can look back at this, share this with new faculty, but also get a good idea of how these activities are going to link up with the course learning outcomes and the course objectives. So in terms of visibility, we've gotten a tremendous amount of visibility. There's a number of media outlets that has covered us. We've given members of the immersive teams given presentations for a number of different groups. We've done tons of demos now internally and externally, and continue to do that. One of the cool things we did last year, as a sidebar, I guess, related to the pilot, once some university stakeholders found out that we were offering these pilots, we were asked to help with homecoming. So homecoming last year had a VR component to it. So we had a live component in Adelphi, but we had a DJ in Adelphi and networking in Adelphi, but we also had networking in VR. And when the DJ played in Adelphi, we streamed it into Spatial and had members of university alumni and stakeholders and students to come participate in homecoming that couldn't do it in person. So we had almost 400 people, and they were across a number of different countries. Here's just a quick highlight video. So yes, so in addition to homecoming, which was a really exciting, my faculty meetings now, I hold them in VR, and so out of my 70 faculty, I typically have 60 or so, 65 of them that attend. So they are well attended. As we start to wrap up here, future plans, we plan to build out some of our spaces to create sort of what we call a digital twin, or we've used a number of different code names for it, but a number of interconnected spaces that every course will have access to. So an instructor will have its own office space, and then classrooms and networking areas and other spaces that they could use, and all the students will have access to those. So sort of like almost a city in VR. And then lastly, I think the future, of course, AI is going to be heavily involved in the use of intelligent avatars or AI-controlled avatars. And I just wanted to show a video from Engage, who's working on something called School of AI. They've created these famous AIs that you can actually have conversations with, and now integrate those into the curriculum with your Oculus Quest 3 headset. Actually, you can talk to these avatars at your kitchen table and have them sit down and have a chat with you and ask them like questions that you would ask them if they were live. They train them, and in some cases, the voices sound similar to the voices of the actual, they've trained them with the voices of the actual historical figures.
What if you could meet the people that shaped our society?
Hear the voice of the great discoverers, the inventors.
What if you could ask them what motivated them?
Our spirits are alive.
Powered by conversational AI. Based on memories, interviews, and experiences.
Visit us in historical virtual locations using phones, tablets, or the latest immersive technology.
Bring history to life by talking to the people who shaped it.
Don't just read about history, create it.
I am real. Come visit me.
We are School of AI.
So anyway, in conclusion, it's still early days. We'll see what happens in terms of XR revolutionizing education, but we have seen some very positive results, and we're very excited about those, and hopefully the university will adopt XR as an instructional tool moving forward. I think in order for it to happen at your university, you have to have support, you have to have champions, and I hope this presentation was informative and inspiring, and I'm not sure where the journey ends, but I hope to see you on the other side. With that, I'm going to relinquish my PowerPoint control.
There's one question we may have time for people who are sensitive to motion sickness. Have students expressed a concern about that while using virtual reality?
That's a good question. That's one of the challenges. I think there are a couple different things. I'm a person that I used to get dizzy on merry-go-rounds, so I get very dizzy on anything. So in some of the spaces that we use, we don't start students off in a roller coaster. You're in a classroom, you just sit down in a classroom, you're not moving around. So we do share some techniques and tricks that you could use that might help your experience, but some students do experience that. And that's why we don't require them to be in VR, and we provide a copy of what actually happened in those VR experiences, so students can have access to that information. They don't lose out on anything. So there are some students that have issues, but if you do have an issue in the headset, you could come in on the computer. And so now you have a flat screen instead of like vision everywhere. And you can also use a phone or a tablet. That way you can sort of have more control over it as opposed to being more immersed in it. So there are some ways that you could try to address that. But those are challenges. Accessibility is still challenging. Those kind of things we're trying to work through those. But what we do is provide a copy of the experience, like in text, and we're not holding students accountable for the things that they're doing. They're not taking assessments, at least not yet, in VR where they missed out on something. So there are some challenges, yes.
But yes,
I'm going to share the certificate. Someone asked about that in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and share that now, and you guys can continue talking.
And was there something else that I missed?
Not sure. My chat keeps bouncing from my different screens. Sorry, I lost it. No, lots of praise in the chat.
Good.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hang on, do you plan to send us the certificate?
It's on the screen. You can copy it, screenshot it, or take a picture.
Oh, okay, I see. Thank you.
We don't send them out anymore. We just put them up, so you can go ahead and take a screenshot if you need to.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.